Every single person has had that uncanny moment where reality seems to loop back on itself, and you're left wondering, didn't I already experience this? It's one of the most common, yet least understood phenomena in human consciousness. But is it just a glitch in the matrix, or is there a deeper, hidden truth? Let's uncover the layers. 1. The brain's memory error. One of the most widely accepted explanations for déjà vu is that it occurs due to a memory error in the brain. This theory proposes that déjà vu happens when the brain processes the same information twice, once as a new experience and once as a familiar memory, causing a sense of familiarity even though the event is happening for the first time. But how does this happen? To understand this, it's important to look at how our brain processes and stores memories. When we experience something, our brain's hippocampus, the region responsible for memory formation, takes in the sensory information and processes it as a new experience. This data is then stored in short-term memory, and if it's deemed important, it gets encoded into long-term memory for later retrieval. In an ideal situation, when we encounter a similar event again, the brain recognizes it as a memory from the past, triggering a feeling of familiarity. However, in the case of déjà vu, this process doesn't function quite as expected. What seems to happen is that a delay occurs in the way our brain processes information. The sensory input from the new experience is processed in parallel pathways, one where it's initially recognized as a new experience and another where it's wrongly processed as something familiar. As a result, the brain mistakes this new experience for an old one. This overlap between the present experience and a false memory causes the brain to believe it has already happened. This theory can be likened to a computer glitch. Imagine a situation where a computer is trying to load a program. If it accidentally runs the same line of code twice, the result might be that the same action appears to occur more than once, even though it's happening for the first time. Similarly, when the brain misfires in its memory processing, it leads to the sensation of familiarity during an event that is actually novel. Interestingly, research in neuroscience has shown that certain parts of the brain, like the temporal lobe, are involved in this kind of memory processing. These areas help us differentiate between the current experience and previously stored memories. When these regions malfunction temporarily, they can cause the brain to experience the present as though it has already happened, which is the essence of déjà vu. In summary, the memory error theory suggests that déjà vu is a result of a malfunction in the brain's ability to distinguish between new experiences and old memories. While it may sound simple, this glitch serves as a reminder of just how complex our brain's memory system really is. 2. Unconscious memory. Another popular theory behind déjà vu involves unconscious memory, suggesting that the phenomenon occurs when the brain accesses a memory that has been stored away but not consciously remembered. The idea here is that our minds constantly take in information, much of which we don't actively process or remember. Some of this information may be stored deep in the subconscious, and at some point it may surface unexpectedly during a new experience, triggering the sensation of familiarity. The brain is an extremely efficient organ, constantly processing vast amounts of sensory input, even when we are not aware of it. For example, we may be subconsciously aware of a small detail in a room, like the color of a lamp or the sound of a particular song playing in the background, even though we don't actively focus on it. Over time, these fragments of information are stored in the subconscious, and when we encounter something similar in the future, the brain retrieves this stored memory, even if we have no conscious recollection of it. Imagine a scenario where you walk into a new cafe and experience a deep sense of familiarity. You may not remember ever visiting that specific cafe, but the brain may recognize subtle cues, such as the layout of the tables, the aroma of the coffee, or the background music, which match previous experiences you've had in similar settings. Although your conscious mind may not be able to identify the exact source of the familiarity, your subconscious mind connects the dots. The result is that déjà vu feeling, as if you've been there before, even though, on a conscious level, you know it's your first time. The unconscious memory theory also ties into the concept of implicit memory. Implicit memories are those that influence our behavior and perception without us being consciously aware of them. For example, you might be able to ride a bike or play a musical instrument without consciously recalling each individual step or movement involved. Similarly, the brain can store memories of past experiences, and when a situation arises that resembles them, your subconscious may trigger a response that creates the illusion of familiarity. This theory helps explain why déjà vu is often fleeting, only lasting for a few seconds, as the brain quickly retrieves these subconscious memories without fully bringing them to the surface. Although we may not remember where the memory came from, it's still there, quietly influencing our experiences and shaping the déjà vu sensation. 3. Delayed processing. The theory of delayed processing suggests that déjà vu occurs when there is a slight delay in how the brain processes new sensory information, leading it to perceive the present moment as a repetition of something from the past. According to this theory, the brain typically processes and interprets sensory input in a very specific sequence, but occasionally this sequence gets disrupted. As a result, the brain may perceive the new experience twice, once as a fresh, real-time experience, and once as something that is already stored in memory, creating the feeling of familiarity. When you encounter a new event, your brain takes in sensory data, such as sights, sounds, and smells, and then processes it to build a complete understanding of the moment. This information is sent through various parts of the brain, with the hippocampus, responsible for memory formation, playing a critical role. The brain typically processes information in one smooth, continuous flow. However, if there's a lag or delay in processing, the brain might treat the same event as two separate experiences, one as the present moment and the other as a memory. This delay in processing can be caused by various factors, including the complexity of the environment or cognitive overload. For example, if you're in a busy or chaotic setting where multiple stimuli are competing for your attention, your brain might process certain elements of the environment slightly out of sync. It could process the same input in parallel pathways, or use an alternative route to store the information, causing it to be perceived as both an immediate experience and a memory at the same time. When this processing delay occurs, the brain recognizes the moment as if it has already been experienced, triggering a sense of familiarity and making it feel as though you are reliving an event. This creates the typical sensation of déjà vu, where the event feels simultaneously new and known, and you may have difficulty pinpointing exactly why it feels familiar. Interestingly, the delayed processing theory aligns with the idea that déjà vu is more likely to occur when people are fatigued or distracted. In these states, the brain may not function as efficiently as it would under optimal conditions, increasing the likelihood of misprocessing information. The delay might be small and go unnoticed, but it's enough to create that eerie sense of repetition. In summary, the delayed processing theory suggests that déjà vu is the result of a temporary disruption in the brain's normal processing flow, causing it to perceive the present moment as both a new experience and a memory. This phenomenon may happen more frequently when the brain is overwhelmed or fatigued, as it struggles to process sensory input in real time. 4. Temporal lobe activity. One of the more intriguing scientific theories behind déjà vu is that it is linked to the activity in the temporal lobe of the brain. The temporal lobe, which is located near the sides of the brain, plays a key role in processing sensory input and is also heavily involved in memory formation. More specifically, the hippocampus, a region within the temporal lobe, helps consolidate and retrieve memories. This connection suggests that abnormal or heightened activity in the temporal lobe could lead to the sensation of familiarity that is characteristic of déjà vu. In normal circumstances, the temporal lobe processes sensory information, allowing us to interpret what we see, hear, and experience. When you encounter a new event, your brain's sensory systems gather information, and the temporal lobe helps store these experiences as memories. The hippocampus is responsible for making sure that only important and relevant experiences are converted into long-term memories for future recall. As a result, when we come across something similar in the future, the hippocampus triggers the memory and alerts us that we have encountered it before. However, when there is a disruption or overactivity in the temporal lobe, particularly the hippocampus, it may lead to confusion between current experiences and memories. This could cause the brain to mistakenly perceive a new experience as a familiar one, triggering the sensation of déjà vu. Essentially, the brain may struggle to differentiate between a recent experience and one stored in long-term memory, creating a feeling that the event is somehow both new and already experienced at the same time. Studies involving brain imaging have suggested that heightened temporal lobe activity is indeed linked to déjà vu. For example, some individuals with temporal lobe epilepsy, a condition that involves unusual electrical activity in this part of the brain, often experience frequent episodes of déjà vu. These episodes are thought to occur because the brain's electrical signals become irregular, causing the hippocampus to mistakenly label a present experience as a past memory. Interestingly, this theory also helps explain why déjà vu can occur more frequently in some people. Those with more sensitive or reactive temporal lobes, whether due to genetic factors, neurological conditions, or even stress, may be more prone to experiencing déjà vu. It suggests that the phenomenon is not just a random occurrence, but rather a result of the brain's complex and intricate memory and sensory processing systems. In summary, the theory that déjà vu is caused by temporal lobe activity suggests that the hippocampus and surrounding areas play a critical role in generating the sensation of familiarity. When the temporal lobe experiences irregularities in activity, it can cause the brain to confuse new experiences with past memories, creating the eerie feeling that you've lived through a moment before. 5. Fatigue or stress. One theory behind déjà vu is that it occurs more frequently when the brain is fatigued or under stress. When we are tired or stressed, our cognitive functions do not operate at their full capacity. This can lead to misprocessing or delays in how the brain handles sensory input and memory formation. Under these conditions, the brain may struggle to efficiently differentiate between new experiences and memories, which could result in the sensation of déjà vu. Fatigue, in particular, has been shown to affect the brain's ability to focus, process information, and store memories properly. When you're exhausted, your brain becomes more prone to lapses in attention and misfires in the neural processes that help encode and retrieve memories. This disconnection between attention and memory consolidation can create a scenario where the brain mistakenly recognizes a present experience as something it has already encountered. This overlap between current and past memories creates the familiar feeling of déjà vu. Stress can also have a similar impact on the brain. When we are under stress, our body releases high levels of cortisol, a hormone that helps us cope with immediate challenges. While cortisol can be beneficial in short bursts, chronic or prolonged stress can affect the hippocampus, the region of the brain involved in memory formation and retrieval. Stress can make it harder for the hippocampus to accurately store new memories or retrieve the correct ones when needed, leading to confusion in the brain's processing of experiences. As a result, the brain might interpret a new event as a memory, triggering a sense of familiarity and causing the feeling of déjà vu. Research has found that individuals who are experiencing high levels of stress or are sleep deprived are more likely to experience déjà vu. This suggests that the phenomenon is not just an ordinary brain glitch, but something that might be more common when the brain is functioning suboptimally due to external factors like fatigue or emotional strain. Additionally, both stress and fatigue can contribute to heightened states of arousal or hyperawareness. In these states, the brain may be processing information more rapidly, leading to a backlog in the processing of sensory inputs. When this happens, the brain might mislabel a moment as a past experience as it tries to make sense of the overwhelming sensory information. This confusion between past and present could explain why déjà vu often feels like a glitch in time. In summary, the fatigue and stress theory suggests that when the brain is not functioning at its best, it becomes more susceptible to misprocessing information, which can lead to the sensation of déjà vu. Whether it's due to exhaustion or emotional strain, these factors can contribute to the brain's tendency to confuse new experiences with memories, creating the eerie feeling that we've been in a moment before. 6. Attention shifts. Another explanation for déjà vu is the theory that it can occur when there is an abrupt shift in attention during an experience. Our brain constantly processes a vast amount of sensory information in the background, but we are usually only consciously aware of a small portion of it at any given time. When our attention is momentarily diverted, whether consciously or unconsciously, it can lead to a mismatch between the sensory input we receive and how we process it, triggering the sensation of déjà vu. Consider a situation where you're in a new place and your focus is drawn to a specific object or sound, such as a particular person talking or a flickering light. While you are focused on this element, your brain is still taking in other pieces of information, like the layout of the room or the background noise. If your attention shifts abruptly from one element to another, your brain might process the information from the original source, and then after the shift, mistakenly perceive the new information as a memory. Essentially, the brain might register the new experience as something it has already encountered before, even though it's happening for the first time. This phenomenon occurs because of how our brain organizes and stores sensory data. Normally, when we experience something, the brain integrates all of the sensory inputs into a coherent understanding of the moment. However, if we focus on one element and then suddenly change our focus, the brain can become confused about whether it's encountering something new or recalling a past memory. The abrupt attention shift may create the illusion of familiarity because the brain briefly overlaps the new experience with something it has already processed. For example, if you're walking through a new area and briefly glance at a familiar-looking street sign or notice a familiar scent, your brain might misattribute the new environment to something you've already experienced, causing the sensation of déjà vu. The more sudden and intense the shift in attention, the more likely it is that this misprocessing will occur. This theory also explains why déjà vu tends to be more common when people are distracted or when they are multitasking. In these situations, attention shifts are more frequent and more likely to cause the brain to misinterpret the sensory input it receives. When attention is divided, the brain's ability to process new experiences properly is compromised, making it more susceptible to glitches like déjà vu. In summary, the attention shift theory suggests that déjà vu occurs when the brain's focus abruptly changes during an experience, causing it to misinterpret new sensory information as a memory. This shift can lead to the feeling that an event is both new and familiar, creating the uncanny sensation of déjà vu. 7. Environmental cues. Another interesting theory behind déjà vu is that it can be triggered by environmental cues, which are subtle sensory details in our surroundings that may remind our brains of past experiences. These cues can be visual, auditory, or even olfactory, related to smell, and they can influence how we perceive a new experience. When we encounter a situation that has certain similarities to something we've experienced before, even if we don't consciously recognize it, our brain can mistakenly label the moment as a memory, producing the feeling of déjà vu. The brain constantly absorbs information from the environment, even if we aren't fully aware of it. For example, a particular color, a specific arrangement of furniture, or the sound of a song playing in the background can all become deeply embedded in our subconscious over time. These environmental elements may not stand out to us in the moment, but they are still processed by our brains. When we encounter a situation with similar elements, perhaps in a new setting or unfamiliar context, our subconscious mind might trigger a memory, even though we don't consciously recognize the connection. For instance, imagine visiting a new city for the first time, but as you walk down a street, you notice that the layout of the buildings or the smell of the air feels strangely familiar. It could be that certain architectural features or the smell of the city remind you of a place you've been before, even if you haven't been to this exact location. The brain may associate these environmental cues with a past experience and incorrectly create the sensation that you've been in this place before. Interestingly, this theory also explains why déjà vu can be more common in certain settings, such as when we are in unfamiliar places or situations. New experiences often involve many sensory inputs that the brain tries to make sense of. If a new environment contains elements that vaguely resemble those from past experiences, the brain might blend the two together, leading to the perception that we have encountered the situation before. This effect is often fleeting, as the brain quickly reorients itself and processes the experience accurately. In summary, the environmental cue theory suggests that déjà vu occurs when subtle, often unnoticed elements of an environment trigger memories stored in the subconscious. These cues may cause the brain to mistakenly recognize a present experience as something it has already lived through, creating the uncanny feeling of familiarity that is characteristic of déjà vu. By processing these environmental details, our brain constructs a sense of familiarity, even in the absence of conscious recognition. 8. Memory. Consolidation. Another theory that attempts to explain déjà vu revolves around the process of memory consolidation. Memory consolidation refers to the way the brain organizes and strengthens memories over time, transitioning them from short-term memory into long-term storage. This process can sometimes go awry, leading to a phenomenon where a new experience is mistakenly stored in long-term memory prematurely, creating the illusion of familiarity when we encounter the event for the first time. Memory consolidation typically happens in stages. When we experience something new, the hippocampus, a region of the brain responsible for forming memories, initially processes this information and stores it temporarily in short-term memory. Over time, the memory is strengthened and transferred to long-term memory, where it becomes more stable and easier to retrieve. During this process, the brain organizes the new information and makes connections with previously stored memories. Ideally, this results in a coherent understanding of the past and present. However, sometimes the process of consolidating memories can become disrupted, causing confusion between new experiences and old memories. If, for example, a new experience is not properly processed, or if there is an overlap with similar memories already stored in the brain, the new experience can be incorrectly categorized as a memory. This misstep can occur when the brain moves information into long-term memory before it has fully processed the experience. As a result, the new experience feels familiar even though it's happening for the first time, because the brain has prematurely stored it as a memory. This idea also ties into how the brain makes connections between related experiences. When we encounter something that shares similarities with a past event, such as the same location, people, or even similar actions, our brain may mistakenly connect the new experience with the old one. These overlapping memories might not be fully solidified yet, but the brain can still perceive them as being part of the same memory network, creating the feeling that the current moment has already been lived. This theory helps explain why déjà vu might be more common when we are tired, distracted, or experiencing stress, as these factors can interfere with the proper consolidation of memories. When the brain is not functioning optimally, it may be more likely to make errors in processing and consolidating memories, leading to the sensation of familiarity during a new experience. In summary, the memory consolidation theory suggests that déjà vu occurs when the brain mistakenly categorizes a new experience as a memory due to a disruption in the process of storing and organizing information. When the brain prematurely moves an event into long-term memory or misinterprets it as a similar past experience, it creates the illusion of familiarity, leading to the experience of déjà vu. 9. Brain's pattern. Recognition. Another theory behind déjà vu involves the brain's innate ability to recognize patterns. Our brains are wired to constantly look for patterns in the world around us. This skill helps us navigate the environment efficiently, enabling us to recognize familiar faces, predict what might happen next in a situation, and make sense of new experiences. However, this pattern recognition ability can sometimes lead to misinterpretation, causing the sensation of déjà vu. Pattern recognition is essential for memory formation and decision-making. The brain takes in vast amounts of sensory information from our surroundings and tries to make sense of it by matching new data with stored memories. This process is largely automatic and happens very quickly, allowing us to make sense of the world around us without having to consciously process every detail. The brain identifies patterns based on past experiences, allowing us to quickly categorize and understand new events by drawing on similar memories. However, in some cases, the brain's pattern recognition system may overreach. When we encounter a new experience, our brain may find similarities between it and a past memory, even if the two events are not truly identical. For instance, if you visit a new location that shares characteristics with a place you've been to before, such as the layout of the room, the way people are arranged, or the color of the walls, the brain might recognize the patterns in the environment and wrongly interpret the new experience as a repetition of something from the past. This misinterpretation happens because the brain is wired to make quick judgments based on patterns, and it sometimes relies too heavily on these automatic connections. The result is that the brain registers the current event as a memory, even though it's the first time it's happening. This process creates the feeling of déjà vu, where the present moment feels familiar, as if we've already experienced it. This theory also helps explain why déjà vu is often linked to relatively mundane or everyday experiences. Often the experiences that trigger déjà vu are not extraordinary, but rather involve routine activities, like sitting in a cafe or walking down a street, that contain subtle patterns similar to past memories. These patterns can be so small and seemingly insignificant that we may not consciously notice them, but the brain recognizes them and creates the illusion of repetition. In summary, the pattern recognition theory suggests that déjà vu occurs when the brain detects similarities between a new experience and a past memory, mistakenly categorizing the current moment as a repetition of the past. Because the brain is always looking for patterns to make sense of the world, it sometimes misinterprets new experiences as familiar ones, leading to the sensation of déjà vu. 10. Parallel universes. One of the more speculative theories about déjà vu involves the idea of parallel universes. This theory suggests that déjà vu occurs when our consciousness momentarily slips between parallel realities or alternate dimensions, where similar events have already taken place. In this view, the sensation of familiarity arises because we are experiencing a moment that we've already lived in a different version of reality. The concept of parallel universes stems from the multiverse theory, which posits that there are many different, coexisting realities beyond our own. These universes could be similar to ours, but differ in small or large ways. Some believe that our consciousness might occasionally shift between these realities, which could explain why we sometimes feel like we have lived through a moment before, even though we know it is happening for the first time in our current reality. According to this theory, déjà vu might be a byproduct of these parallel universes, where a version of ourselves has already experienced the same event, and for a brief moment, we are tapping into that other reality. The theory relies on the idea that time and space are not as fixed as we might think. In the multiverse framework, every decision we make could create a new branch of reality. This means that countless versions of ourselves might be living out slightly different variations of the same moment across different universes. When we experience déjà vu, it could be that our consciousness briefly crosses over into one of these parallel versions of ourselves, where we've already lived through the same event. This glitch in our perception would result in the sensation that we are reliving a moment from the past, even though it's a new experience in the present. While this theory may sound like something out of a science fiction novel, it aligns with certain interpretations of quantum physics, particularly the idea of quantum superposition, where particles can exist in multiple states at once. Some proponents of the parallel universe theory suggest that our consciousness might operate similarly, briefly existing in multiple realities and leading to moments of déjà vu when we overlap with another version of ourselves. In summary, the parallel universe theory suggests that déjà vu occurs when our consciousness slips between alternate realities, where similar events have already taken place. This idea offers a fascinating explanation for the phenomenon, suggesting that what we experience as déjà vu may be a glimpse into another version of reality where we've already lived through the moment. Though speculative, this theory connects the experience of déjà vu to the broader mysteries of time, space, and the nature of consciousness itself. 11. Déjà vu and quantum physics. Another intriguing explanation for déjà vu is tied to the principles of quantum physics. This theory proposes that the phenomenon occurs as a result of quantum fluctuations or quantum effects within our consciousness. Quantum physics deals with the behavior of particles at an incredibly small scale, where particles can exist in multiple states or locations simultaneously. Some proponents of this theory suggest that the strange occurrences associated with déjà vu, such as the feeling of reliving a moment, may be a manifestation of these quantum phenomena affecting our perception of time and memory. One of the core principles of quantum physics is quantum superposition, which suggests that particles can exist in multiple states at once. For example, an electron can be in more than one position simultaneously until it is observed or measured. Similarly, some theorists propose that our consciousness, or at least aspects of it, could exist in multiple states or realities at once, and that the feeling of déjà vu arises when a fragment of our awareness slips into an alternate timeline or possibility. In this view, déjà vu could be seen as a glimpse of a moment where different potential outcomes of an event are overlapping. Another concept from quantum physics that could explain déjà vu is quantum entanglement. This phenomenon describes how particles that were once connected can remain linked, even when separated by vast distances. Some suggest that our memories or experiences might be entangled in a similar way. In this model, when we experience déjà vu, we are accessing a memory or experience that was not part of our current reality, but is somehow linked to a parallel or alternate version of our reality, much like entangled particles are connected across space and time. Additionally, the idea that time is not linear in quantum physics could also support the déjà vu theory. Quantum theories, particularly those related to the multiverse, suggest that time could be more fluid and flexible than we perceive it. If our consciousness is capable of experiencing multiple timelines or different versions of events, it might be possible for a moment to feel familiar because it has been experienced in another parallel timeline. In this case, déjà vu would be a brief overlap between timelines where the brain's perception of time is momentarily altered. While these ideas are highly speculative, They represent a fascinating intersection between quantum physics and the subjective human experience. The connection between the two could help explain why déjà vu feels so inexplicable and mysterious, as it might involve quantum effects that influence our consciousness and perception of reality. In summary, the theory connecting déjà vu to quantum physics suggests that the phenomenon could be the result of quantum fluctuations or entanglement, where our consciousness slips between alternate realities or timelines. Though speculative, this theory provides an interesting lens through which to explore the nature of time, memory, and human perception. 12. The holographic universe. Theory. One of the more mind-bending theories to explain déjà vu is the concept that our entire universe is a hologram. The holographic universe theory, which comes from the field of theoretical physics, suggests that our three-dimensional reality might actually be a projection of information encoded on a two-dimensional surface. Essentially, the universe we experience could be a holographic image, similar to the way a 3D object can be represented by a 2D image on a hologram. According to this theory, the strange and inexplicable feeling of déjà vu might occur when this holographic projection briefly glitches, causing the brain to perceive a moment as a repetition of something that's already occurred. The origins of the holographic universe theory come from the work of physicists like David Bohm and more recently Juan Maldacena, who proposed that the fundamental structure of the universe could be based on quantum information theory. In this view, all the information that makes up the universe, everything from the laws of physics to the particles that form matter, is actually encoded on a distant two-dimensional surface. The three-dimensional space we experience is then a sort of projection or illusion created by this encoded information, much like how a 3D hologram is created from a 2D surface. If the universe is indeed a hologram, it would follow that our perception of time and space could be more fluid than we currently understand. This could lead to moments of déjà vu when the brain temporarily experiences a glitch in how this holographic projection is rendered. Essentially, what we interpret as the present moment might overlap with an earlier instance in the hologram, leading to the sense that we are reliving an event. This explanation would suggest that déjà vu is not simply a memory error or misfiring in the brain, but rather a brief interaction with the underlying structure of reality itself. The theory also connects to the concept of time in the holographic universe model. If time is not strictly linear, as some versions of the theory suggest, events may not be experienced in a strictly chronological order. Instead, time could be more like a fluid, interconnected web where moments from the past and future can overlap and influence each other. In this framework, déjà vu could be a fleeting moment where past and present merge, giving us the eerie sensation that we've experienced a moment before, even though it's technically new. In summary, the holographic universe theory suggests that déjà vu could be a result of our consciousness briefly interacting with the holographic projection of reality. If the universe is a projection from a two-dimensional surface, then déjà vu might be caused by a glitch in the way this information is being processed, creating the feeling of familiarity during a new experience. This theory connects deeply with our understanding of time, reality, and the nature of perception, offering a truly fascinating and speculative explanation for the mystery of déjà vu. Forto Mini 13. Déjà vu as time travel. Another fascinating theory about déjà vu suggests that it could be a form of time travel, where our consciousness briefly slips through time, allowing us to relive moments from either the past or even the future. While this idea might seem like science fiction, it offers an intriguing way to explain the sensation of familiarity that occurs during déjà vu. According to this theory, when we experience déjà vu, it's not a simple memory error or brain glitch, but rather an instance where our minds tap into a moment that exists outside of our current perception of time. The concept of time travel has long been a staple of science fiction, with stories often revolving around the idea of moving backward or forward in time to experience events that have already happened or are yet to occur. Some proponents of the déjà vu as time travel theory suggest that our minds are not entirely bound by the constraints of linear time. Instead, they propose that consciousness might be capable of accessing moments from different points in time, whether by traveling back to revisit the past or forward to witness potential future events. According to this theory, when we experience déjà vu, our consciousness could be momentarily displaced in time. This could result in the sensation that we are reliving a specific moment, even though in our current timeline, the event has not yet occurred. This feeling of familiarity might occur when our consciousness experiences a glimpse of something that will happen in the future, but hasn't fully manifested in our present reality. In this way, déjà vu would be a brief interaction with our future self, or a future moment, giving us the strange and uncanny sensation that we've already lived through the experience. Some variations of this theory also suggest that déjà vu could occur when our consciousness travels backward in time, allowing us to revisit moments from the past. In this case, we might momentarily tap into a previous version of ourselves and feel as though we have already lived through a particular event or scenario. This version of déjà vu could arise from an event or decision that we once experienced but no longer consciously remember. While there is no scientific evidence to support the idea that time travel is possible in the way this theory suggests, it does provide a captivating framework for explaining why certain experiences can feel so oddly familiar. The sensation of déjà vu, in this context, could be seen as a brief moment where the barriers of time break down and our consciousness becomes aware of a past or future moment that exists just beyond our current experience. In summary, the theory that déjà vu is a form of time travel suggests that our consciousness might occasionally slip between past, present, and future, allowing us to experience moments from different points in time. Whether glimpsing the future or revisiting the past, this theory offers a unique way to explain the mysterious and often inexplicable nature of déjà vu. 14. The Mandela Effect. The Mandela Effect is a fascinating phenomenon that has gained attention in recent years and is sometimes linked to déjà vu. It refers to the widespread experience of a large group of people remembering an event or detail one way, even though evidence clearly shows it never happened that way. The name originates from the phenomenon in which many people believe that former South African President Nelson Mandela died in the 1980s, while he was actually still alive at that time. People collectively misremembered this event, creating an alternate reality in their minds. Some proponents of this theory suggest that déjà vu could be linked to the Mandela effect, as both involve the idea that people collectively experience a version of reality that doesn't align with the true historical timeline. According to this theory, déjà vu could occur when our minds briefly slip into an alternate version of reality, one where we experience the event in a different way. This idea stems from the concept that there could be multiple parallel universes or timelines, and the events we experience may sometimes overlap between them, leading to conflicting memories or sensations of familiarity. For example, if a person experiences déjà vu, they might feel as though they've lived through a particular event or situation before, even though they have no conscious memory of it. The Mandela effect suggests that this could be because their consciousness is briefly tapping into an alternate timeline or reality where they experienced that same event. In this scenario, the mind remembers a version of the event from another reality, and when we experience déjà vu, it's as if we've lived through that moment in another universe, even though we haven't in our own. Additionally, the Mandela effect is characterized by the collective nature of the misremembered events. Large groups of people recall specific details incorrectly, creating a shared alternate reality. This could be tied to the idea that people might share memories from parallel universes, where each individual experiences the same alternative history. Déjà vu, in this context, might be a brief moment where our minds and memories align with another universe's version of reality, causing us to recall events that never happened in our current timeline. In summary, the Mandela effect theory suggests that déjà vu could be connected to the idea of parallel universes or alternate realities. When we experience déjà vu, it may be because our consciousness is briefly accessing an alternative version of events from a different timeline. This concept connects the eerie sensation of déjà vu with the larger mystery of memory, reality, and the possibility of parallel worlds existing alongside our own. 15. Interdimensional awareness. One of the more speculative theories behind déjà vu is the idea of interdimensional awareness. This theory suggests that déjà vu occurs when our consciousness briefly becomes aware of a different dimension or alternate reality, where similar events have already happened. According to this view, our minds might be able to tap into other dimensions, parallel to our own, and for a split second, we perceive a moment as though it's something we've already experienced, because it has already happened in another version of reality. The concept of interdimensional awareness draws heavily from the idea of the multiverse, which posits that there are multiple, possibly infinite universes that exist simultaneously. Each of these universes can have its own version of reality, which might differ in small or significant ways. These parallel universes could contain versions of ourselves living out slightly or vastly different lives. In this framework, our consciousness might, under certain conditions, momentarily align with one of these alternate realities, allowing us to experience something that feels familiar, yet is completely new to our current life. From a scientific perspective, the theory of interdimensional awareness suggests that the universe operates on a far more complex level than we realize. While our minds generally perceive reality through the lens of our current universe, there could be times when the barriers between dimensions briefly thin, allowing us to sense or interact with an alternate version of events. During these moments, déjà vu could be a byproduct of our awareness expanding beyond the confines of our own dimension, causing us to perceive time and experiences in a way that doesn't entirely fit with our current reality. This theory also ties into the idea that time might not be as linear as we perceive it. If multiple dimensions exist, with different versions of time unfolding simultaneously, our minds might occasionally experience a glitch where we briefly see an event that has already occurred in another dimension or timeline. This momentary overlap could explain the sensation of déjà vu, where the present moment seems eerily familiar because we've already lived it out in an alternate version of ourselves. While interdimensional awareness is far from a widely accepted scientific explanation, it offers a compelling and imaginative way to think about the mysterious nature of déjà vu. It connects the phenomenon to the broader mysteries of parallel universes, alternate timelines, and the potential for our minds to experience realities beyond our own. In summary, the interdimensional awareness theory suggests that déjà vu is a fleeting moment where our consciousness briefly connects with another dimension, leading us to experience an event as though it has already happened, even though it's happening for the first time in our own reality. This theory offers a speculative but fascinating explanation for the uncanny feeling of familiarity that déjà vu brings. 16. Memory fragmentation. The memory fragmentation theory offers a compelling psychological explanation for déjà vu, suggesting that the phenomenon arises when the brain retrieves fragmented pieces of past experiences and mistakenly applies them to a current situation. In other words, déjà vu may occur when incomplete or disjointed memories resurface during a new experience, leading the brain to falsely interpret the moment as familiar. Our brains are incredibly complex, and constantly absorb information, even when we're not fully paying attention. Not all of this information gets stored as clear, organized memories. Often, only fragments, like the layout of a room, the tone of someone's voice, or the smell in the air, are retained without full context. These bits of memory may not be accessible through conscious recall, but they're still embedded in the subconscious mind. When we encounter a new situation that contains similar elements to these forgotten fragments, the brain may attempt to complete the picture by matching the new experience with the incomplete memory. This overlap can trigger a false sense of recognition, creating the illusion that we've lived the moment before, when in reality, we're simply matching pieces of an unrelated past to the present. This misattribution leads to the classic feeling of déjà vu. For example, imagine you walk into a cafe you've never visited, but the way the sunlight hits the floor, combined with the faint smell of coffee and the sound of a specific song, resembles a forgotten moment from your past. Your brain, trying to make sense of these familiar cues, pulls up an old, fragmented memory, maybe from a dream or a long-ago encounter, and mistakenly associates it with your current experience. The result is an eerie sensation that you've been there before, even though you haven't. This theory also explains why déjà vu is typically brief and vague. Since the experience is built on fragmented and incomplete memories, your brain can't fully reconstruct the original event, leaving you with only a fleeting sense of familiarity that quickly fades. Additionally, it aligns with research showing that people with stronger pattern recognition or more vivid imaginations may experience déjà vu more frequently, as their brains are more prone to piecing together incomplete data. In summary, the memory fragmentation theory suggests that déjà vu results from the brain mistakenly combining pieces of past memories with present experiences. This blending of disconnected fragments creates a false impression of familiarity, offering a rational yet fascinating explanation for one of the most mysterious sensations we experience. 17. Precognition. The precognition theory suggests that déjà vu might be more than a memory glitch. It could be a brief moment of seeing the future. According to this idea, déjà vu is not just a mistaken feeling of familiarity, but a subconscious recognition of something we've already glimpsed in a dream, vision, or moment of unconscious awareness before it happened in real life. In other words, we may have already previewed the moment before experiencing it in our current timeline. Precognition, often associated with psychic phenomena, is the ability to perceive or gain information about future events before they occur. While mainstream science remains skeptical about the existence of true precognitive ability, many people report having dreams or gut feelings that later match real-life experiences. The déjà vu sensation in this context is believed to be a signal that what is currently unfolding is something the brain has already registered in advance, even if we weren't aware of it at the time. A common example of this theory in action is someone dreaming about a very specific situation, perhaps walking into a strange room, hearing a certain phrase, or noticing a unique combination of colors or sounds. Months or even years later, they find themselves in that exact scene, triggering a deep sense of familiarity. Because they don't consciously remember the dream or the mental impression, they experience the moment as déjà vu rather than a memory. The idea is that the subconscious mind held onto the vision, and when the event finally occurs, the brain recognizes it instantly. Some theorists argue that time may not be as linear as we perceive it. From that perspective, precognitive déjà vu could be a form of temporal perception, where the mind momentarily taps into future timelines or events. Rather than being limited to the present, our consciousness might, under certain conditions, access pieces of information from moments that haven't yet occurred, essentially bending time within the mind. While precognition remains a controversial and largely unproven concept, it offers a fascinating explanation for why some déjà vu experiences feel so vivid and detailed. They don't just seem familiar. They feel like moments we knew were coming, even if we can't explain how or why. In summary, the precognition theory suggests that déjà vu is a subconscious recognition of a future event we've already seen in a dream or intuitive flash. It reframes déjà vu not as a flaw in memory, but as a glimpse of something yet to come, a psychic preview of reality unfolding. 18. Psychic phenomenon. The psychic phenomenon theory suggests that déjà vu is more than just a brain glitch or a misfiring memory. It could be a subtle form of psychic awareness. According to this idea, déjà vu happens when a person unconsciously taps into extrasensory perception, ESP, allowing them to intuitively know or sense something before it happens. Rather than being a fragment of memory or a cognitive error, the sensation of déjà vu might be a brief moment of heightened intuition, an unconscious psychic ability that gives a preview of reality just before it unfolds. Psychic phenomena encompass a range of extrasensory experiences, including telepathy, clairvoyance, and precognition. Déjà vu, within this framework, would fall into the category of precognitive intuition. Supporters of this theory believe that the human mind may occasionally access information that lies beyond the physical senses, tapping into an energetic field, or universal consciousness, that contains knowledge of past, present, and even future events. According to this view, when you experience déjà vu, it's not because you've lived through the moment before, but because your psychic mind briefly picked up on the future occurrence ahead of time, perhaps seconds, minutes, or even weeks before it happened. When the actual moment arrives, your conscious mind registers the event as oddly familiar, not because you've done it before, but because your subconscious had already perceived it. One explanation for how this might work is that some people are naturally more sensitive to these psychic impressions. In moments of calm, stress, heightened emotion, or altered mental states, their intuition may become more active, allowing subconscious foresight to slip into conscious awareness. The result is the distinct feeling that you just knew this moment was going to happen. An impression so strong it feels like memory, even though it isn't. Although mainstream science has yet to confirm the existence of psychic abilities, thousands of anecdotal reports describe striking instances of intuitive knowing and premonitions, many of which are hard to explain using conventional theories of memory or perception. For believers in the psychic phenomenon theory, déjà vu isn't just strange, it's a hint that the human mind is far more mysterious and capable than we currently understand. In summary, the psychic phenomenon theory suggests that déjà vu may be a form of extrasensory perception where the mind momentarily accesses information about a future event through intuition. Rather than a mental error, it could be a flash of deeper awareness, an intuitive glimpse into the unseen workings of reality. 19. Neurochemical imbalance. The neurochemical imbalance theory offers a scientific brain-based explanation for déjà vu, suggesting that the sensation arises from temporary disruptions in the brain's chemical signaling, particularly in how neurotransmitters like dopamine function. According to this view, déjà vu is the result of a momentary misfiring or surge in brain chemicals that causes the brain to mistakenly interpret a new experience as a familiar one. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter involved in several critical brain functions, including reward, motivation, attention, and memory. It plays a significant role in signaling between different areas of the brain, helping us process new information and make decisions. Research has shown that dopamine also affects the brain's sense of recognition and familiarity. When there's a sudden increase or irregular spike in dopamine, especially in areas related to memory, like the temporal lobe, the brain may falsely tag a current event as something we've experienced before, even if we haven't. This is the essence of déjà vu, a moment that feels oddly familiar, with no logical reason why. This theory is supported by studies involving individuals with neurological conditions such as epilepsy, schizophrenia, or anxiety disorders, conditions often associated with imbalanced dopamine levels. Many people with these conditions report more frequent episodes of déjà vu, suggesting a possible link between brain chemistry and the phenomenon. Even in healthy individuals, factors like stress, fatigue, excitement, or sensory overload can temporarily affect dopamine levels, potentially triggering a déjà vu experience. Interestingly, the neurochemical imbalance theory helps explain why déjà vu often appears out of nowhere during moments of relaxation or intense focus. These are times when the brain may be switching gears, shifting from one mode of processing to another. In these transitions, chemical signaling may briefly become erratic, creating a misfire in the brain's recognition system. The result is a sudden, fleeting sensation that what you're experiencing has already happened. This theory doesn't just apply to dopamine. Other neurotransmitters, such as acetylcholine and glutamate, are also involved in memory and perception. Imbalances or disruptions in their signaling could contribute to the déjà vu effect as well. The key idea is that our sense of reality and memory is deeply tied to neurochemical balance, and even slight disruptions can lead to perceptual anomalies. In summary, the neurochemical imbalance theory proposes that déjà vu is caused by irregular neurotransmitter activity, especially dopamine, that alters the brain's ability to distinguish new experiences from memories. It frames déjà vu not as a mystical or metaphysical event, but as a fleeting chemical glitch in the complex machinery of the human brain. 20. Disruption of neural pathways. The disruption of neural pathways. Theory suggests that déjà vu arises from a brief miscommunication or interruption in the brain's normal flow of information. Our brains rely on intricate networks of neurons to transmit signals that help us interpret the world in real time. These neural pathways are responsible for everything from processing sensory input to forming and retrieving memories. When something temporarily disrupts these pathways, it can create a momentary confusion in how we perceive and experience, making something new feel oddly familiar. To understand this, imagine the brain as a vast highway system where information travels along specific routes to reach its destination. When the roads are clear and functioning properly, everything moves efficiently. But if there's a detour, delay, or misdirection, even for a split second, the signal might arrive at the wrong destination or get processed out of order. In the case of déjà vu, this kind of disruption might cause the brain to interpret incoming sensory data as a memory rather than a brand new experience. Researchers believe that these disruptions often happen in the temporal lobe, particularly in the medial temporal structures like the hippocampus and parahippocampal gyrus, which are crucial for memory processing. If one pathway fires slightly out of sync, delivering information to the memory centers a fraction of a second before the conscious processing occurs, it can trick the brain into thinking that what it's experiencing now has already happened. This theory also aligns with the idea that déjà vu tends to be more common when the brain is under certain conditions, such as fatigue, stress, or sensory overload. In these states, neural communication may be less efficient, and timing between pathways can become momentarily misaligned. These tiny misfires or delays are usually harmless and correct themselves instantly. But during that brief window, they can produce the unsettling feeling of reliving a moment. Furthermore, people with neurological conditions like epilepsy, particularly temporal lobe epilepsy, often report frequent déjà vu experiences. In these cases, seizures can cause abnormal electrical activity that disrupts normal neural signaling, making déjà vu a common symptom before or during an episode. This adds weight to the idea that déjà vu is tied closely to how neural circuits function and occasionally misfire. In summary, the disruption of neural pathways theory suggests that déjà vu results from temporary glitches in the brain's communication network. When signals are slightly delayed or misrouted, the brain may confuse the present with the past, leading to a moment where reality feels strangely familiar. 21. Epilepsy and déjà vu. One of the strongest clinical connections to déjà vu comes from its link to epilepsy, specifically temporal lobe epilepsy. In fact, for many individuals with this condition, déjà vu is not just a strange occasional sensation. It's a common symptom that often precedes a seizure. This connection has given researchers valuable insights into how déjà vu might be rooted in neurological activity, particularly in the temporal lobe of the brain, which plays a key role in memory and sensory processing. Temporal lobe epilepsy is a form of epilepsy where seizures originate in the temporal lobe, a region located near the sides of the brain. This area contains critical structures such as the hippocampus and amygdala, which are heavily involved in forming, storing, and recalling memories. During a seizure, or even just before one begins, abnormal electrical activity in this part of the brain can trigger vivid sensations, including a powerful sense of familiarity or the feeling of having lived through the moment before. This is essentially a heightened, often more intense version of what the average person experiences as déjà vu. Interestingly, the déjà vu experienced by individuals with epilepsy is often accompanied by other sensory changes, such as distortions in sound, taste, or visual perception. These experiences are not random. They are the brain's response to chaotic electrical firing disrupting its normal processes. In many cases, patients with temporal lobe epilepsy can even predict an oncoming seizure based on their déjà vu episodes, what doctors refer to as an aura. This makes déjà vu more than just a curiosity. It becomes a clinical warning sign. Even in people without epilepsy, the fact that déjà vu can be artificially triggered by stimulating the temporal lobe supports the idea that the phenomenon is deeply tied to how this brain region functions. Neuroscientists conducting brain mapping during epilepsy surgeries have reported that stimulating certain points in the temporal lobe can evoke strong feelings of déjà vu in patients, reinforcing the idea that it's a neurological event rooted in memory processing. In summary, the link between epilepsy and déjà vu provides compelling evidence that the sensation is neurologically based. For those with temporal lobe epilepsy, déjà vu can act as a neurological red flag, a brief but powerful illusion of familiarity caused by abnormal electrical activity. These findings highlight how delicate and complex the brain's memory systems are, and how even slight disruptions can create vivid, confusing experiences like déjà vu. 22. Memory encoding errors. The memory encoding errors. Theory offers a practical and brain-based explanation for déjà vu, suggesting that the sensation occurs when the brain mistakenly categorizes a new experience as a memory. In simple terms, déjà vu may happen because of a hiccup in the process of encoding, the brain's method of storing incoming information into memory. Instead of registering the experience as something new, the brain files it incorrectly as something familiar, causing a false sense of recognition. Memory encoding is a fundamental part of how we process life. When we experience something for the first time, the brain quickly assesses the information using various sensory systems, sight, sound, smell, and so on, and determines how and where it should be stored. Typically, this process results in the formation of a short-term memory, which may later become a long-term memory depending on relevance and repetition. But when encoding goes wrong, even for a split second, the brain may confuse the timeline and label the experience as something that has already been stored. Imagine walking into a new cafe. You're taking in the ambiance, the aroma of the coffee, the sound of the music playing. All of these inputs are supposed to be logged by your brain as a brand new experience. However, due to an encoding error, the brain may accidentally bypass the short-term memory step and instead flag the moment as a long-term memory, as if it had already happened. This causes the eerie sensation that you've been in that exact place before, even though you logically know you haven't. This theory also explains why déjà vu typically lasts only a few seconds. Once the brain reorients itself and correctly processes the moment, the illusion of familiarity fades. It's a quick correction to what is essentially a minor memory glitch. Several factors can increase the likelihood of memory encoding errors. Fatigue, distraction, or cognitive overload can interfere with how effectively the brain encodes new information. In these conditions, the brain is more likely to make mistakes, including misfiling new data as something that already exists in memory. In summary, the memory encoding errors theory argues that déjà vu is caused by the brain mistakenly storing a present moment as a memory. This temporary mislabeling creates the illusion that we've lived the experience before, a brief but convincing trick of the mind, rooted in the complexities of human memory. 23. Neural crosstalk. The neural crosstalk theory offers a compelling explanation for déjà vu by focusing on how different parts of the brain communicate. According to this theory, déjà vu occurs when there's a brief overlap or interference between neural pathways that process incoming sensory information and those responsible for memory retrieval. This miscommunication, or crosstalk, can lead the brain to interpret a new experience as something already familiar, even though it's happening for the first time. Our brains are made up of billions of neurons that transmit electrical signals through intricate networks. Different brain regions specialize in specific tasks. The sensory cortex processes what we see, hear, and feel in real time, while areas like the hippocampus and temporal lobe handle memory storage and recall. Normally, these systems work in harmony, with sensory input being processed and only later associated with existing memories, if any. But sometimes, signals between these systems get mixed up. When a new experience is being processed, the information might leak into the memory system slightly ahead of schedule. The brain misinterprets this new information as a memory simply because it's being routed through familiar pathways. Essentially, the sensory data is mistaken for something previously encountered because it activates circuits that typically handle past experiences. Think of it like two phone lines briefly crossing. You hear part of someone else's conversation during your own. In the brain, this might manifest as your present experience momentarily being misread as a recalled memory, creating the powerful sensation of déjà vu. The familiarity feels real because it's rooted in the brain's memory processing mechanisms, even though no actual memory exists for the event. This theory helps explain why déjà vu is often accompanied by a vague, intangible sense of familiarity. You feel like you've been in the moment before, but can't quite place where or when. It also supports findings from studies on epilepsy patients, where abnormal electrical activity in the brain leads to unintended stimulation of memory centers, triggering déjà vu-like experiences. In summary, the neural crosstalk theory suggests that déjà vu results from a temporary overlap or interference between brain regions handling sensory input and memory. This misfiring causes the brain to mislabel a brand new experience as familiar, leading to that strange, dreamlike feeling that you've lived the moment before, even though you haven't. 24. Role of the hippocampus. The hippocampus is one of the most crucial regions of the brain when it comes to memory formation, and many scientists believe it plays a central role in the experience of déjà vu. Shaped like a seahorse and located deep within the temporal lobe, the hippocampus acts as the brain's memory center, helping us form, store, and retrieve both short-term and long-term memories. According to this theory, déjà vu arises when the hippocampus briefly misfires, causing the brain to mistakenly identify a new experience as one it has already encountered. The hippocampus works by encoding the details of our daily experiences, where we were, what we saw, who we were with, and linking them to a specific time and place. This process helps us distinguish between new events and those that we've experienced before. But like any part of the brain, the hippocampus isn't immune to glitches. A momentary error in how it processes or retrieves information can lead to what feels like a memory, even though the event is unfolding for the first time. Let's say you walk into a new office for a job interview. The furniture, lighting, or even the smell of the room may share characteristics with a place you visited long ago. If the hippocampus detects these similarities and inaccurately connects the current experience with stored memories, or triggers a sense of recollection without a specific memory attached, it can create the illusion that you've been there before. This is how déjà vu often feels: intensely familiar, but frustratingly impossible to place. Importantly, the hippocampus doesn't work alone. It collaborates with other structures like the entorhinal cortex and the amygdala to determine the emotional weight and contextual details of a memory. A breakdown or slight delay in communication between these regions could result in a false match, causing a brand new experience to be flagged as a memory by mistake. Researchers have observed that hippocampal dysfunction is common in neurological conditions such as epilepsy and Alzheimer's disease, both of which are also associated with altered memory and, in some cases, frequent déjà vu. These findings further support the idea that the hippocampus plays a pivotal role in generating the sensation. In summary, the hippocampus theory suggests that déjà vu stems from a temporary error in the brain's memory center, where new experiences are falsely tagged as familiar. This momentary miscommunication within our internal memory system creates a brief but powerful illusion that we've lived a moment before. 25. The impact of dreams. One fascinating theory about déjà vu connects it to our dreams, proposing that the feeling of familiarity during a new experience may come from having previously encountered a similar scene or scenario while dreaming. According to this theory, déjà vu happens when reality briefly overlaps with a dream you've had, one you may not consciously remember, making the current experience feel eerily familiar, as though you've lived it before. Dreams are often fragmented, surreal, and quickly forgotten after waking. However, even when we don't consciously recall them, many dreams are stored in our subconscious mind. The brain doesn't always draw a clear line between memory and imagination, especially when processing ambiguous or emotionally charged content. When you encounter a situation in real life that resembles something from a forgotten dream, perhaps a specific setting, conversation, or feeling, your subconscious recognizes the similarity, triggering the sensation of déjà vu. For instance, you might be walking through a park in a city you've never visited, and suddenly you feel like you've been there before. There's a bench under a certain tree, the sound of birds chirping, and a breeze brushing against your face. And although you've never consciously seen this place, something deep inside you insists it's familiar. The theory suggests that you may have dreamed of this scene weeks or even years earlier, and now that real life has caught up with your dream, the memory surfaces just enough to spark déjà vu. This also ties into the idea that dreams can be a form of mental rehearsal. Our brains often simulate possible futures or alternate versions of events while we sleep, combining fragments of real memories with imagined scenarios. When one of those simulations aligns closely with a real-world experience, the subconscious may react with, "I've seen this before," even if you can't remember where or when. Scientific studies show that the brain regions involved in dreaming, especially during REM sleep, overlap with those involved in memory and emotion. This suggests that even forgotten dreams can leave a subtle imprint on our perception and experience of reality. In summary, the dream theory of déjà vu proposes that the phenomenon arises when a real-life moment mirrors something we've already experienced in a dream. Though the dream may have slipped from conscious memory, the brain subconsciously recognizes the scene and creates the sensation that we've lived it before, even if it only ever occurred in sleep. 26. Déjà vu in healthy brains. While déjà vu is often discussed in relation to neurological conditions like epilepsy or memory disorders, it's important to note that it's also a completely normal experience for people with healthy brains. In fact, most individuals, especially young adults, report experiencing déjà vu at some point in their lives. This common occurrence suggests that déjà vu is not necessarily a sign of cognitive dysfunction, but rather a natural byproduct of how the brain processes information, forms memories, and handles perception. In healthy individuals, déjà vu is believed to result from subtle mismatches in the brain's memory and recognition systems. Our brains are constantly comparing current experiences with stored memories to determine whether something is new or familiar. Sometimes, due to the incredible speed and complexity of this system, a new experience might be incorrectly flagged as familiar, even when there is no clear memory attached to it. This creates the classic déjà vu sensation, the feeling that you've been in a situation before, even though you consciously know you haven't. This can happen during mundane activities, walking into a room, having a conversation, or even hearing a phrase that feels strangely familiar. It's often triggered by sensory cues, such as smells, sounds, or visual layouts, that bear subtle resemblance to other experiences we've had, even if we can't consciously recall them. Interestingly, déjà vu is most common among people between the ages of 15 and 25. Some researchers believe this is because younger brains are more actively engaged in forming new memories and experiencing new environments, making them more susceptible to these minor recognition mismatches. As we age, and as our experiences become more repetitive or familiar, the frequency of déjà vu tends to decline. Moreover, people who are more introspective, imaginative, or sensitive to their surroundings may be more prone to experiencing déjà vu. These individuals tend to process information more deeply, making their brains more likely to detect familiar patterns, even in unfamiliar situations. Studies using brain imaging have shown that déjà vu involves activation in regions like the medial temporal lobe, which plays a key role in memory formation. Even in healthy brains, temporary disruptions in this area, due to fatigue, stress, or distraction, can cause brief lapses in how memory and perception are coordinated. In summary, déjà vu in healthy brains is a normal, harmless phenomenon caused by the brain's highly efficient but occasionally imperfect memory and recognition systems. It reminds us of how complex and fascinating our perception of reality truly is, even when everything is functioning exactly as it should. 27. Future research on déjà vu. Despite déjà vu being a common human experience, it remains one of the most mysterious phenomena in neuroscience and psychology. While various theories attempt to explain why it happens, from memory glitches to parallel universes, the exact cause still eludes scientists. However, with ongoing advancements in brain imaging technology, cognitive science, and artificial intelligence, the future of déjà vu research holds exciting promise. One of the main challenges in studying déjà vu is its unpredictability. It happens spontaneously and lasts only a few seconds, making it difficult to recreate or observe in a laboratory setting. However, newer techniques like functional MRI, fMRI, and electroencephalography, EEG, allow scientists to monitor brain activity in real time. These tools have already shown that areas like the hippocampus and temporal lobe, regions involved in memory and recognition, light up during déjà vu episodes, especially in individuals with epilepsy. Future research may build on these findings to uncover the precise mechanisms that cause the brain to confuse present moments with the past. Another promising avenue is virtual reality, VR. Researchers have started using VR to simulate familiar environments or scenarios in controlled settings, allowing them to trigger déjà vu-like experiences in test subjects. By manipulating visual and sensory cues, scientists can explore how the brain reacts to situations that feel familiar without the subject having truly experienced them before. This method offers a controlled way to study déjà vu without relying solely on chance. Artificial intelligence and machine learning also show potential in analyzing massive data sets of memory patterns and brain activity. These tools could help identify subtle correlations between déjà vu and other cognitive functions, such as attention, imagination, and emotional states. Over time, they may reveal whether certain personality types or genetic markers are more prone to experiencing déjà vu and why. Additionally, as we continue to learn more about sleep, dreaming, and memory consolidation, researchers may uncover stronger links between subconscious processes and déjà vu. Understanding how the brain sorts and stores information, both during waking hours and while we sleep, could shine light on how déjà vu fits into the broader puzzle of consciousness and perception. In summary, while déjà vu remains an enigma, the future of research is promising. With the help of modern neuroscience, virtual reality, and artificial intelligence, scientists are getting closer to decoding this fleeting but powerful experience. One day, we may finally understand why our brains make us feel like we've already lived certain moments, and what that reveals about the nature of memory, time, and reality itself.